Hello friends, welcome to Daily Sourdough. Let's talk about the Autolyse process and why it's important and when is it beneficial. When making white bread with bread flour or all-purpose flour, a 15-minute to maybe 60-minute Autolyse period is plenty. But when you're using fresh ground whole berries like wheat berries, red wheat berries, einkorn berries, a longer Autolyse period is really beneficial, and I'll show you why. Today I'm going to mix up a half whole wheat and half bread flour dough. I just ground my berries into flour just a few minutes ago, so they're very fresh and unsifted, so it has the full bran in it. I'm going to add 2 cups of this fresh ground hard red wheat berries plus 2 cups of bread flour, because many times when making a whole wheat bread I use half and half, so mix that up. However, anytime you're making a whole grain bread, maybe you're using 4 cups of whole wheat flour freshly ground, then a longer Autolyse period is very beneficial. A true Autolyse process is when you take only the flour and the water and mix that together and let it sit. So you add all of the flour in your recipe plus all of the water and mix that together. But don't mix too thoroughly because you don't want the gluten to begin forming quite yet. So just mix it until the water and flour are just barely incorporated and it's still a shaggy mess. Just that much. When using fresh ground whole wheat, it includes all the bran, and that bran acts like little shards which slice through the gluten and can cause your bread to fall. So once you hydrate that bran, it softens it and therefore your bread will rise higher. This is when the Autolyse period begins, and when you're using freshly ground whole grain, you want this to sit and rest for several hours. And in fact, I leave mine in the refrigerator covered overnight, and I'll show you the difference. This is the exact same ingredients as this one, and this has been autolysing overnight. As you can see, it is very stretchy. Once you add the water to the flour, it activates the enzymes that are on the wheat berries. One of the major enzymes begins the gluten development, and as you can see, it's very stretchy. This is going to add a lot of elasticity to your dough, and anytime your dough is very elastic, then it's going to rise higher. So a long Autolyse period with whole grains allows your bread to rise more fully. As you can see, you can even do the window pane method. It's becoming very see-through right in the center. That's one of the main benefits of an Autolyse. A second major enzyme is activated when adding the water, which changes the starches in your flour into sugars. And of course, that is exactly what your sourdough starter feeds on. So if you take a close look, you can see that this dough is crumbly and very, very soft. This is without the Autolyse period. And this is autolysing it overnight. It's a huge difference. So autolysing your whole grains is going to be very beneficial and giving you that nice rise. It also enhances the flavor of your bread and makes your dough easier to work with because it's already got a head start on the texture that you want, which is very malleable. There are other methods of the Autolyse process, one of them being adding your starter along with your flour and water. That will speed up the fermentation process So you'll want to be aware of that. Another is to add the salt along with your flour and water. Some people find it easier to mix that in with the flour to make sure it gets mixed in thoroughly. However, that will stiffen your dough a little bit sooner. So it kind of depends on what you want to play around with. Try all those different methods. This process works the best for me. So now I'm going to add my starter and my salt and hand mix this in. Another benefit to the Autolyse process that I forgot to mention is that your bread will need less kneading. And in fact, I'll just do the stretch and fold method even with this whole wheat bread. Sometimes it takes a stand mixer to mix such a heavy, dense dough, but with this, it's already softened. Now that my whole wheat dough has gone through the Autolyse process overnight, I'm going to add my starter and my salt and then allow it to bulk ferment probably 8 hours, and then I will shape it and bake it. This is why Autolyse is so important. This is the exact same recipe in both loaves. This one here had no Autolyse period, and it is heavy as a brick. This is how my whole wheat sourdough bread turned out in the beginning when I was first learning. And it was so discouraging because I had no idea what to do differently. So I kind of gave up on sourdough whole wheat bread for a time until I learned about Autolyse. And look at the difference. This is the only difference. This bread autolysed overnight in the refrigerator. The Autolyse period allows the phytic acid to disappear. It allows your gluten to begin developing, and it breaks down the glutens into sugars, providing that ready food for all the bacteria and the micronutrients in your sourdough. Autolysing gives you not only a better texture, but also better color and flavor in your bread. This applies generally to wheat berries though. Don't autolyse rye because that will deteriorate too quickly. And white bread, white flour, only needs a short autolyse period, but whole wheat flour, give it an overnight autolyse and you will end up with beautiful, fluffy, delicious bread. And friends, there's more coming up on Daily Sourdough, so stay tuned. I have more recipes on how to use your sourdough starter on a daily basis.